It's good to be here with you. Thank you, Jim, for the opportunity to speak. As Jim said flawlessly a couple of times, I'm with the Florida Institute for the Commercialization of Public Research. That is not a name that was created by a marketing agency. That was legislated by our esteemed Florida State Legislature. Doesn't even make a good acronym, FICPER. But we just call ourselves the Florida Institute. I'm an entrepreneur in residence there, and I have the privilege of working with research institutions and universities from Port St. Lucie down to Miami, and University of Miami is the most active of the institutes with which I work. So I thought I would organize my comments along the lines of who, what, where, why, when, and how. And so I'll start with the what, which is what is the Institute, what is our program. The Institute is a largely state-funded organization. It's a nonprofit, and we were formed by the Florida Legislature, who provides almost all of our funding, several years ago, with a thesis that there's about $2 billion worth of funded research going on in our state each year. And if any of that actually comes to the point of being commercializable, that going out into the marketplace, typically it's being licensed to a company in another state or even another country. And yes, there's some royalties that come back to our state, but a lot of the economic benefit, a lot of the jobs and other upside, the investment capital that would have otherwise been attracted is not staying in our state. And so why don't we change that? So we provide taxpayer-supported consulting services, and the thing in which people are most interested, about $5 million worth of equity funding per year to Florida-based companies that license technology from Florida research universities and institutions. And we have a portfolio of over 35 companies now that we have supported financially, and many other companies or pre-companies that we support with other types of assistance. So where? Florida. We're trying to create jobs and economic benefit for our state. And so right now we only operate in Florida, and we only support companies that are based here in Florida. Now why are we doing this? Jobs, economic benefit. So we are trying to create companies that can scale, not lifestyle companies, if you've heard that term, where an individual or their family can run for a long time, but there's a limit to what's happening there. We're looking for scalable companies. Why only academic research? Well, frankly, we would at some point like to be able to expand to other types of entrepreneurial companies as well, but if you think about the best types of jobs, they would tend to be higher tech companies employing more highly educated people, and so academic research is a great place for us to start. Why do we make equity investments? So equity means we take, and I hope this is not being too basic, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So equity is when somebody takes stock in your company. They buy stock in your company, and you take money in. And so then they become a partial owner. And it's different than a loan. You get a loan, you repay the loan. And the person who put in $1 gets back $1 and maybe a little bit of interest. But with equity, especially because we're investing in companies we hope will become very successful, there's the potential for the Institute to get back many times its money and then have many times more money that it can reinvest in more companies. And when we make an equity investment, we match it with a third-party equity investment. So what we're looking for is that somebody who's not your mom or your brother it has looked at what you're doing and felt that it was worth taking some of their money and putting it in your company. So it's a form of validation. We match third-party equity investments. We match ultimately up to $500,000 $300,000 on the first round. But we are matching third-party equity investment. Now, it could be an individual, it could be a fund, it could be a corporation, but as long as it's a third-party private equity, then we can match that. So when would you want to come to us? At what stage would your company or your pre-company be? We're looking for concepts that they're largely proven out in the academic setting. So in much of what we find, though not exclusively, is life science, just because that's where most of the research funding happens. So let's say if you were a drug that you had done some good animal model studies, had some promising data, you might be getting pretty close to clinical trials. That would be a point at which we would be interested. Or you have a medical device prototype that you want to start going into how you would scale the manufacturing. You're starting to talk to the Food and Drug Administration. So that almost done with proof of concept phase is where we would get involved. How the process works. If you are working on intellectual property or are going to be taking intellectual property from a research university or research institute, such as, say, Scripps, then you would go to that part of the university or research institution where they can grant you a license or an option to license. So in this case, you would go to Jim, if you're at the University of Miami, and say, Jim, I would like to take this lovely IP, and I've already disclosed it to you, and we've already gotten it protected with some patent applications, and I would like to take that and make a company, and I would like to get some assistance from the Institute. And then Jim would say yes, and pick up the phone and call me, and we would set up an appointment and talk. If you have a company already set up and you are talking to investors and you're far along in that process, then you can come and I can start a conversation between you and myself and our seed funding program manager. And we'll be looking for how you present your opportunity for us to invest in and to co-invest. And we will give you assistance on polishing up that presentation, or tell you where we feel you're strong, or where areas of your story where you might want to do a little more work. And then we have an investor advisory board made up of 25 to 30 venture capitalists, angel investors, mostly from Florida, but also other parts of the Southeast and other parts of the US. And we have some members of that group, hopefully who have some particular expertise in your area, to review, you pitch to them. You pitch to them like you would pitch to anyone else from whom you wanted money. If they feel that your company is interesting, then the Institute will do some what's called due diligence, some research on you and the technology and how your company is set up, and just make sure everything is good. And then it's presented to our 5-member board of directors for approval. It's a process usually takes about 2 to 3 months. And the last thing is who. So who are we investing in? There's a phrase in venture capital called ride the jockey. And what that means is that, especially for a young company, as important or more important than the technology is the person who's actually going to be running with it. And so we would like to know that there's somebody who's going to be dedicated to that company, pretty full-time, running the company, that the person, it's nice if they have experience. So for instance, Joe is here in the audience. He is a biotech and technology entrepreneur. He's had several successful companies. So, that's nice if you have experience and we know that you've done it before. But also, if you may not have done it before, but you may be very passionate about this technology. And so in that case, if we find that you, let's say you've been a teacher, a professor, in that situation, we would be looking for somebody who's willing to have the tables turned and become the student and be advised by other people who have done it and learn about business. And that would be somebody we would also consider taking an equity risk on and investing in and assisting. So if you feel like you have the who, what, where, why, when, and how, if you are the who and would like more information on our programs, I'd be very happy to talk to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Allison.